Good evening. We find ourselves roughly where we left off. Congratulations, Jake Straw, on being first. Now I simply have to remember where I was going, what I was trying to accomplish. Thank you for the hydration, and also congratulations on starting your streak back up. Right, so if memory serves, I was looking for basically anything that I could actually do. And I think I checked it over here and there wasn't really much. I don't think there's much I can do over here right now. I think to do anything here, I need the next movement tool. I think to do anything here, I need to get down here first. To go here, I need water. The ability to go underwater. To go here, I need the ability to go underwater. I think I just physically can't jump high enough here. Or here. So, I don't know if I know where to go next. I will simply have to figure it out. I wonder what the odds are that, like, the underwater breathing shard I can just get from killing fish. And I could have just gotten it, like, ages ago, because I can reach these fish from the surface with spells. Might actually be a thought worth following up on. You never know until you try. I suppose I'll just keep killing fish until I, get a shard drop and then see what it is. Because I do know that there's like a swimming and or underwater breathing shard. And it coming from a fish would make sense. I could have simply looked this up, but I mean... part of the fun in games like this is, like, getting lost. There is a limit to it, but, like, I haven't hit mine yet. I was like, I wonder if there's like a breakable wall behind that guy. Oh, shard. It is not a passive shard. Vaisha. Fling ice towards enemies. Doesn't sound particularly helpful. But I appreciate the opportunity to expand my collection. I could maybe like poke around here a little bit harder. What if those toads have a shard? I'm pretty sure everything has a shard. Oh, there might be something here. There might be something here, actually. If nothing else, it's worth checking out.
I finished the... Hand up.
Can you...
Sure.
This man will plant corn. I believe I do still have
Hi,
the,
Miriam. So, what'll it be?
I believe I do still have the picture of Miriam, which I think I used to make an ID for the tram. Oh, Tosocious. Osius. I was like, how do I upgrade this one? I don't see it on the list. I just couldn't read.
I'll go with this.
Looks like upgrading it increases the number of times that it bounces.
I'll go with this. I'll go with this. I'll go with this. I'll go with this.
I would need more emeralds to get more of those. I would need to kill more flying swords if I wanted to upgrade this one. Invincibility at the moment of the second jump if I get fairy wings. That sounds
Did you
worthwhile.
see the Eastern man in the red armor? He was at Dominique's supply post.
You mean Zangetsu? Be careful around that one. He thinks shard binders and alchemists are as bad as demons. He said he'd cut us down if he saw us again.
Well, we did technically start all this. But I agree, he doesn't need to be so savage.
Those scars on his body tell the story of a rough life.
Oh, well, then I'd better keep my distance.
That you should.
I like how they're right. I like how they're like, yeah, he's completely right, but he doesn't have to be mean about it. Yeah, fairy wings. I wonder if those are like a rare drop from like the fairy enemies, or if they're like from something else. Because iframes on the double jump sounds really nice. Wait, wasn't that door the one that I needed the warhorse's key for?
I'll take you to a place.
Yeah, I think this needed the warhorse's key, which I think I don't have. If memory serves, my hint for where to go next was basically the library. So I probably just missed something really obvious. And I'm gonna feel silly when I figure out what it is. Also, upgrading shards. Definitely seems like a thing I should be doing more. I think I mentioned before, but when I first played this game, I went through the entire game without upgrading shards because I just forgot that that was a mechanic. So I've never actually seen a lot of these shards at like their full potential. I'm certainly enjoying this one. I wonder how much of a boost it is to the sword if I upgrade it. Like, how worth my while would it be if I were to, like, just go grind a few of them for, like, sword fragments? Is what I'm wondering right this very second. I can get this now, that's nice. I think later on I get a passive that tells me where, like, or like which parts of the map have things that I would be interested in that I just haven't collected yet. I think that's a thing. I might be misremembering. My memory's not the best, so I'm not always, I don't always have close at hand the knowledge of, like, where I've been before and what was there. Oh, also, similar note, I did look it up, I don't remember if I said this earlier. I did look it up. There is an accessory that shows, like, how much health enemies have. But you don't have access to it until, like, the end game. So it's gonna be a while yet before that's an option for me. Summon Ghost. I mean, if you think about it, like, most forms of murder also double as Summon Ghost. Shard finders aren't that special. think my plan right now is I'm gonna make my way back to like a warp point. Unless I can climb this. Can I climb this? The rough plan is make my way back to a warp point and then see if I can, like, poke around the library and find something that I should have found but didn't. Looks like there's some stuff over here I could potentially reach, probably from dropping down here. That or I'm just meant to be able to get up there, and then that's a way to proceed from, rather than enter from. It's another thing to keep in mind, at least. So that was all not terribly productive. I could use a waystone, but at this point it's just as easy to keep running, I think. And like, it's not really my goal to grind, but this is a non-zero amount of experience while I'm at it, so... Did I ever talk to this woman?
I'd rather keel over and die than spend another moment in a living hell like this one.
Slowly pulls out gun.
Oh, don't say that. Never you mind me, young lady. What's your name? I'm Susie.
Miriam, is there anything I can do to help?
Well, I do enjoy a good meal, but I can't remember the names of the dishes I like.
I'll help you figure it out. I promise.
She's just like me, for real. Portable snack. She probably wants a rice ball.
I suppose I'll stick around and wait a little while longer.
Oh, she gives you the
Did
icon. That's kind of interesting.
I have something. What are you looking to buy?
Stock back up on
Is this for many
waystones.
thanks? Is this for thank you?
I've not needed as many potions recently, which is nice.
What are you looking to sell? Thank you. Did you...
Madam, take this rice ball.
That's it! How did you know? Oh, I can't wait to try it.
Save some
oops.
for me?
I feel a little better. Thank you, miss.
I mashed through a line of dialogue, I apologize.
You're welcome. Don't give up. You're going to get through this.
There is a non-zero chance that she just passes away from old age before this whole thing finishes going down.
Is there...
Yes,
I'll help...
Irresistible, round top with something gooey and stretchy.
I suppose I'll...
Oh, it's pizza. That does check out.
Did you forget? Thank you.
Right. let's save our game, head back to the library. There's gotta be something there that I should have spotted and just did not.
Got any? Here's what I've turned. Good. Got any? Here's what I've turned. Good. Got any? Here's good.
Heir apparent 3.
Here's what I've turned. Good. Got any? Here's what I've turned up on monsters.
Speed belt, that sounds like fun.
Help my kill though. Got it. Here's what I've turned. Help kill.
I may have said before in like a different stream, but like,
Help kill that.
I really enjoy it when equipment choices aren't just like number go up. Like, I think it's a lot more interesting if they like add mechanics or like modify things more so than just number go up. Okay, library. I have been told to poke around in this library. I will try to keep poking around without leaving this library. Get through there somehow. Can I ask OD to just like pick me up and shove me through horizontally?
OD, how does one board the train here in the castle?
That old thing. Why would you want to?
Because
You need credentials to pass through the station gate. I could give you mine,
really,
but the credentials must carry your photograph in order to be valid.
my what?
Ah, that's right. Your kind hasn't invented photography yet. But if anyone has come close, it would be the church. If you know any men or women of the cloth, they may be able to help you.
Okay, so with this I can get onto the train and then maybe there's something there.
Oh, a photograph! I have one of those!
Well now, misprepared. Here you are. Your very own credentials.
Thank you, OD.
That was awfully nice of him. Well, okay then. Train. Where was... I think that was down here. Alright. I have a goal again. Awesome. I kind of have mixed feelings on like set bonuses on armor. Because like on the one hand, it does feel really cool to like put together a full set and like get a big payoff. But on the other hand, it kind of feels like I haven't done as much decision making as I would like to. If that makes sense. Less, oh, I came up with something cool, and more, oh, finally, I got the 3 drops that I was after. Just the three like pieces of armor of the silver fox. It's like, yeah, okay, I guess. Like, I'm not upset, it's just... They removed armor bonuses in the second game and added 2 extra weight slots. That feels like a bit too much of a swing in the opposite direction. I think one of my favorite games in terms of like an interesting way to like make equipment choices like something to like really think about for a bit is actually Divinity Original Sin 2. Because there is a little bit of like number go up involved. But stats in that game tend to be like fairly low, so like a stat going up by like even 1 point can sometimes be like really impactful. Rather than just like, oh, like I got a drop, my strength goes up by 24 kind of deal. And the other big thing is like, the equipment in that game can have skills on it. So like, for example, you might have a character who's like a total warrior. But then you have like a ring that has like a healing skill on it. And so if that warrior equips that ring, they can use that healing skill. And so like, it's useful on a warrior because it like makes them more versatile. But you could also use it on a character who like does have inherent healing skills, because like, if you have a skill from a piece of equipment, you don't have to have it attuned. So you can like use your attunement points on other skills. Not necessarily saying that that's like the best way to do things, but like it stands out in my mind as like a really interesting way of doing things. And then like I mentally compare it to like a game like World of Warcraft, where it's like, oh, you got a really cool job. It doesn't change how you approach anything, it just makes your numbers go up, and it's just like, that feels like wasted potential. I would really like to see some fairy wings, because with that I can get eye rings. Though if it does come from those things, it's probably a really rare drop. We'll see how it plays out. Uh-oh, I'm in danger. Kinda getting my stuff rocked there. Luckily, there were no consequences. Potion, you say? Who needs potions? Not I. Certainly not I. Gargoyle Stone. Witch's Tears. I like witches are really cute, don't make them cry. Oh. I think I like walked right up to the train and then turned around and walked away. So anyway. That's my sense of direction at work. At least I remember that the well led somewhere very different. We take our small wins where we can get them sometimes. This is fine. I do find it kind of amusing that, like, the hint I got was like, oh, check the library. And then, like, I went to the library, like, zone. they like didn't exhaust the dialogue on the librarian. Which in hindsight, I'm like, I see where I went wrong. Firearm expertise, or expertise. So this thing. Goodbye, puppy. Excellent. I can board the train. Oh, Senketsu.
Wait, I didn't come here to fight.
Then you should not have come at all. But our clash may have to wait.
Oh, this train.
Hey, you catch on quickly. I have business further ahead. But I find myself at odds with the powerful witchery driving these carriages.
Surely nothing a man of your ability cannot handle.
I already conducted a search inside. But there is an area I cannot pass because of the sorcery it requires.
Ah. Well, it just so happens I have business ahead as well. Does this mean we have a truce?
For now. What?
Suddenly running on train tracks. My eyes seem weirdly classy there. 5-minute timer. That's not ominous at all. Assassin. Assassin's Vest? That sounds like fun. What's that do? Increases the speed of your attacks. It's kind of incredible across the board. No cosmetic changes though, regrettably. That man is dead.
Miriam, get on this train.
Right, that works. Bullet capacity up. The icon for bullet capacity up being a pair of crossed guns implies to me that, like, the means by which Miriam holds more bullets is by simply bringing more guns. Which is really a very entertaining thought to me. Flying dagger. I like how his skills all do like hundreds of points of damage.
This open.
Oh, this is the thing that he said I needed to do. She is dead. Extremely so. Anivami. Anybody's halberd refashioned into a sword by the swordsmith Toshiro. Maybe it's like a chunky, it's like a chunky katana. Also, my sword is golden now. A familiar one. That's kinda cool.
I will cut down foolishness.
Hey, 1 point of damage. Ow. Oh no. wonder if I'm like meant to bait this fight as Zangetsu, or... Oh wait, no. He's weak down here.
Scrumptious.
Alright, this is too bad now. I just had to figure out what to do. With a time limit on this fight, the boss can't be too tanky. Oh. And it's dead. Hammer Knuckles, swing a massive fist in the designated direction. Well, that worked out.
You have my thanks.
Save your thanks. I didn't do it for you.
Fine. But I owe you all the same. You are a fierce one, Shardbinder Miriam.
Wait, on his overworld sprite there, he didn't have a sword. He was posed like he had a sword, but he didn't have a sword. Well, in either case, I made it through the train. Awesome. Hopefully I can find a save point. Oh hey, a save point. Assassinate. Maneuver behind enemies and attack their blind side. Durable rag. I really should just make a habit of like swiping at walls. Like that. Granted, there was kind of like a hint for this one because there's a standable ledge here. Why would that be there if I wasn't meant to stand there for something? But still. And through here, where do we find ourselves? Underground Sorcery Lab. This is ringing a bell big time. And that looks like she might drop the thing that I need. The fairy wings. Oh, healing. Gradually recover HP while the shard is active. I think that's a manipulative shard, yeah. Still. That man just killed himself. Belied Blast. Cause an explosion in the designated direction. Okay, so I do have regenerating health now, technically. Because my MP regenerates, and then I can spend it on healing. It's not incredibly efficient, but it is an option in a pinch. I am almost certainly going to want to rank that one up to make it more efficient, because... Would you please stop screaming at me? Black pepper. The spiciest substance I can tolerate. Actually, wait, I can't tolerate it. If I consume black pepper, I go into a coughing fit. Oh, Dominique, what are you doing here?
Oh, Miriam. Dominique, what are you doing here?
Same brain cell.
Looking for Zangetsu. Have you seen him? Yes. We fought together aboard the train. Perhaps I misjudged his intentions. What? Zangetsu was with you? But that's... Is something wrong? I asked him to go to the underground sands, but he must have chosen to disregard that request. If you see him again, would you ask him to report back to me? All right. Alfred could spring a trap on any one of us at any time. I hope Zangetsu gets his priorities straight. Thank you, Miriam. And stay safe.
And she's gone. Did she actually answer what she was doing here, or did she just, like, shift the focus to Zangetsu? Resist poison. Just don't get poisoned. Toad heart, walnut. Nice hits. Days and weeks have gone by, but despite my many attempts to cultivate more crystal, the only way I have successfully proliferated it is with the original homunculus subject. I have tried transplanting the crystal into similar subjects, yielding the same pitiable results. I must be failing to remember something. The crystal proliferates across my subject's bodies like a corruption, but the process is far too slow. To amass enough crystal to summon Bale, as my superiors have asked, would require centuries. When I first discovered the crystal, it grew more quickly. How do I reproduce that? How? What am I doing wrong? Have you tried asking nicely? People always underestimate the power of, like, just being polite. Also, ow, that was over half my health. Oh, interesting. If I get off of the couch, before it finishes healing me, it just doesn't heal me. Or it doesn't finish healing me, I should say. Can I get out without getting cursed? Release me. I mean, mission accomplished, technically. Or witch's tears. Don't think I can go there just yet. I did end up getting cursed, which kinda sucks. And I do believe this is a boss fight. Alright. And I do believe I remember which boss fight this is. So I'm going to want that extra health. I will try to get up there without taking too many hits. This guy looks like a Metroid Prime Hunter's enemy. I just need this map then. I underestimated how many, I underestimated how many times I could physically come into contact with him. And I got cursed on the backswing. Oh, maybe it's like a curse thing instead. Not a duration on the couch thing. Yeah, those banshee things are somewhat bothersome. I can handle it though, probably. When in doubt, just throw a bunch of lightning at it. The ability you get from this guy is really fun. I think I can take 2 more hits. Rude. Extra rude. Yeah, I can take 1, maybe 2 more hits. It was in fact 2. Not even close. And he exploded. Reflector Ray. Travel along a ray of light. You can reflect off walls to reach new areas. Is that a directional shard? Yes, it is. I should probably start making more use of favorites. But yeah, this is really cool. It bounces off of reflective things, but also just in general, you can just go places. It's a really fun mobility tool. I should totally set up like a, at bare minimum, like a traversal loadout with like craftwork and ray and such, and then another one with like stuff that kills things. I really want to save what I've got. But I don't want to teleport out, because then I'd have to go all the way around to get back. So So my plan is... I'm gonna grab a bunch of mana, and then I'm just gonna lightning blast my way back down to the save room. Though I suppose I could also use the healing shard. I think the lightning blast plan is both faster and more likely to actually work. Mostly it's probably going to be orders of magnitude faster, if I'm being entirely honest. Thank you for the headbats. I just have to not die to anything very, very silly on the way. Like a frog jumping at me very slowly and easily to see. And it's locked in. Alright. If I come up here, can I... So, Reflector Ray, Craft Work... I don't think there's any, like, particular utility in any Conjuration Shards. So name can be, utility. And then this one can be, like, combat. Or, like, maybe, like, general combat. That's an interesting way to, if you type in any letter, it jumps all the way to the end. Mostly I just want to be able to get back to Tefsosius. May as well make this healing, I suppose. Alright, let's take a 5-minute break here. Please use this time to refill your beverage, go to the bathroom. Anything that would take you about 5 minutes. I will see you shortly. I return. Let's see what we can't accomplish. Now that I can teleport short distances. I feel like I should be able to make this. There we go. Oh, rude. And granted, I'm probably the ruder one for walking up and stabbing several times, but still. Recipes for Damascus equipment. That could be interesting. And then I got bodied by a cat. In my defense, it was a very big cat. Oh, and this is before I set up those presets. Unfortunate. At least now I know what I'm doing. I wonder if there's like some way to change the icon. Or like I wonder if that's actually the weapon. It's probably like the weapon. Yeah, it is a large kitty. It is almost certainly also a demon. But the fact remains that I did underestimate it. I was like, ah, this course of action will not result in my death. And I was wrong. Oh, release me. Damascus equipment. I wonder what this this cat would actually give as a shard. Probably that poison spiral thing. I do appreciate that it's really quite easy to respawn enemies. You don't have to like wait or go a certain distance, you just leave the room and come back. Yep. Toxic Storm. Something I should really do the next time I find myself back at base is restock on potions and perhaps even some food. I should probably also try killing some fairies to get a set of fairy wings, because I think so the double jump really does sound nice to me. Resist strike. Passive defensive bonuses are nice. Especially when they're not tied to an equipment slot, which they would be if I maxed it out, I'm pretty sure. Silver Power Ring. Increases in attack power. Increases attack power proportional to the number of enemies you've slain. Alternately, I could just go with the Cursed Ring. The reason not to go with the Cursed Ring is that it would be a rather substantial reduction in luck. I'll keep that in mind for later. I don't think I can really use its full potential right now. But later, almost certainly. Draw upon your sword's magical power and unleash it upon enemies. Sadly, I don't think the sword that I have is a magical sword. Alright, let's save our game, double check our quests, see what,
I finished the harvest. And a...
Can you...
Sure.
see what I can do.
This is... Right.
I guess I got no reason to hang on to that, so I'll just give it to her.
Thank you. Oh.
Take the thing, please. Wait, I thought I had one of those. Did I get it and then die, or...?
Hello.
I know that I had one of those at one point. I think I might have gotten it as a drop and then died. Which, if so, oops.
Have you learned? Here's what I've turned up. Good.
A purse ring. Enemies more likely to drop gold. Also just a boost to my luck in general, which I think raises drop rates across the board.
Another mess in this chamber where the bell tolls. Seek the demon woman basking in blood. A female vampire, perhaps?
Vampires drink blood. They don't bask in it.
Wait, there's more. The room was an ocean of gore. From some grisly battle, perhaps. And if I'm reading this right, the demon he spoke of was able to instantly collect this blood without laying hand or lips on it.
Well, that means even the slightest wound in her presence would put me in danger.
She won't be easy to defeat. You had best go in prepared. What are you looking to buy? Is this right? Thank you. Thank you.
Right, so... place of the bell, and then a big pile of gore. And I know exactly what the big pile of gore is.
Hi, Miri. What are we
I
transmuting this
don't
time?
remember exactly what the demon in question is. But I'm sure I can figure it out. Oh, that's a cute, beret thing. I can technically increase reflector rain. Gives it more range. Interesting.
Oh, you often bring up your promise to Jeeble, but only vaguely, never in detail.
Really?
Yes. Are you ever going to tell me the whole story?
Well, back then, the experiments left me feeling stripped of my humanity. The pain from the crystal was a constant reminder. At one point, I lost my will to live entirely. Jeeble and I got into a fight over some stupid thing. And I shouted, "How long are you going to pretend you're human? We're monsters now." But I'll never forget what he said to me. If we ask for the demon's power, then we're monsters. But if people force us to take it, then our power doesn't make us good or bad. Our choices do. That freedom of choice is proof we're human. It cheered me right up. I felt like a person again. And that was when we promised to stop each other. If we ever lost the ability to choose. Sorry, I know it's a long story.
It was a really fast story, Miriam.
No. I'm glad I asked about it. And that you were willing to tell me.
Of course.
Hi, what are we transmuting this time?
Let's make some high potions.
I'll go with this. I'll go with this. I'll go with this.
I like it. Pace yourself up.
Normal potions don't seem particularly worth using anymore, so I'll just make them all into high potions. Oh, interesting. I thought I needed a reflective surface. Well, not complaining. So there are a couple of things that I would like to do. I definitely want to get, like, upgrade for the double jump so it gives me iframes. That just seems like a good thing to have in general. I can also use this new skill to actually, like, get to the places on the ship that I couldn't get to before, I'm pretty sure. It's not the best traversal shard in the game, but it's pretty dang good. Not really a thing I can complain much about. Given that it seems to replace my first jump, I don't know if it's actually going to be better than just jumping for this one. It probably is. If you're wondering why I'm not jumping immediately, it's because there's a window where I can't. There we go. Pirate hat. Oh. I guess I was meant to be able to get that a while ago. Oh well. You probably can just reach it with like really good jumping. Oh well. Sanjigan? A 3-section staff with extendable joints. Interesting. I think I'm pretty used to the swords for now, though. Sea urchin. I don't think I got one of those before. Monster bird tier. Yeah, getting this stuff off the ship has been bothering me in the back of my mind for a little bit, so it's nice to get closure on that. This feels like probably the place to be. I remember vaguely what to do here. I remember that this next boss definitely kind of like stood out from the crowd. So I did a better job of sticking in my mind. If you recall the area that's like slick with gore, it's this bit here. also really should consider, I've said this a couple of times now, but I really should consider going and just like farming a couple sword fragments. G and some MP. And through here we've got Outsider. Shield Outsider. Directed shield. Call forth a shield that can be faced in any direction. Sapphire and Silver. Ammo up. Dish recipe. Okay, I thought there was going to be something new here. Well, progression, I should say. Maybe I can do something up here? Or over here? Oh, I can definitely go do stuff over here, because, or like over here. Because, like, that's what I needed the, that's what I needed, like, the raid for. Those are definitely options. This is fine. I think there's something about this hallway in particular where, like, it feels like a really interesting, like, indicator of how comfortable I've gotten with the game. Because, like, at first I was kind of, like, inching through it and it was, like, hard fought at every step. And now I'm kind of just, like, strolling forward through it, ripping and tearing as I go. I can go up here. Need to be faster to take the warp thing, though. Also, I think this is like the 5th time I've said this, but I really should consider going and, like, Maybe even just like straight up farming some silk wings. Because I think I need one for the jump and one for the for the bean thing. I'll see. If the hint was like go to the bell place, then the cathedral is probably the place to be. I might also consider I forget what I might also consider. In the amount of time between starting that sentence and like reaching that point in it, I forgot what point I was trying to make. I don't necessarily think I'm going to accomplish anything up here. But it would bother me if I didn't at least, make the map symmetrical. I definitely want to be over there. That said, something I might do is try to grab a sword fragment. Because I think it just takes one to back my sword up once from where I am right now. So in my mind, it's like, okay, I'll do like a little quick grind. And this will be okay. And I'll get my sword up. I've also got like the cut purse ring to like make drop rates better, so like, even better. I think multiple copies of a shard also makes it stronger. So like hypothetically I could get that too. I wonder, can I actually look at the upgrade requirements for a shard without having to be like at what's his face? Sword fragment, there we are. It'd be Shovel Knight by another name. Lance armor, dropping Damascus, pretty girl with a guitar. Atomic of Death. Silver Tiara. Defense and intellect up, attack down. More importantly though, it looks cute, so here we are. Oh, rude. Let's just not touch those. if you're wondering why I dropped back down, it's because I realized that the thing underneath me was like one singular room. So in my mind, it's probably worth exploring because like there might be something cool in there, like an upgrade or something. Or maybe it's just a shortcut. No, wait, I couldn't get up here before. Right. What might be found over here? Thunder circlet. I'm in danger. And I'm dead. Regrettable. And avoidable. Did I save after getting the sword fragment? I might be dumb. I think I'm dumb. Well, these things happen. Well, at least I don't have to spend a lot of time just trying to climb a cathedral that I can't climb. Small victories. Gentleman has given me a partisan. She's given me a smoothie. Barrage. It'd be really funny if there was a save room, like, right here. Gunpowder. Interesting thing to find on the person of an archer. Release me. Okay, heads are bothersome. But if I went in there with more health, I think it would be less of an issue. So I will simply go in there with more health. Oh, interesting. Zipping through somebody causes damage to them. I wonder if there's like any number of upgrades that makes it an actual viable way of dealing damage. Okay. really want to see what shard this one gives me. Oh, rude. I also kind of wish that I could, like... Oh dear. Well, that went really poorly. I was gonna say, I wish I could, like, use lightning and the teleport ray at the same time. Like, without having to go to, like, a little interface for it. It's not the worst thing in the world, it's just, like... the part of my brain that's lazy is just, like, I don't want to push an extra 2 buttons whenever I want to change things. Actually, I think it's 3 buttons, but, like, who's counting? Rude. Release me. This is fine. You know what she gives me? Upbeat heat. Literally blasts the flame. Whatever that means. And then I died, with an health up in sight. These things happen. I do think it's kind of cool how when I use this skill I like collapse down into a point, and then zip somewhere else and then like pop out. Like, it makes it stand out to me a bit more than something like, say, just breaking apart into motes of light. There's the tiara I was after as well. Nice. And it was all for that, and it was arguably worth it. Or not even arguably, it was unquestionably worth it. What might we accomplish in here? You know, you would think after the first time I would have realized that, like, I can't make that jump. in doubt, use more gun. Yeah. When in doubt, use more gun. I kind of mumbled that one. I could really go for a save room right about now. I think I can grab this thing. No, I could not. Is there anything healing shaped down here, I wonder? Rude. That whole sequence might be all random, but it's actually a hint towards an Easter egg. This is fine, I'm simply learning where things are in the castle now that I can go more places. I do want that health up. Oh, best shard in the game. Summon chair, call forth a chair, and set it down. Oh wait, I just put that in combat, not utility. Maybe I'll do Death Cry. Some non-negligible AoE coverage. 100 gold. What's in here? Oh, hey, it's a dragon. Just actually straight up a dragon. And I'm on fire. I want to kill that dragon. I'm not gonna waste time going for the health up. Like, I will go back and get it, but I'm not gonna get it every single time I die. I want to kill that dragon. I'll come back for the health up. Oh, I just realized this also means that I think I lost summon chair when I died. That's unfortunate. Oh no. This is fine. Dragon. And it's dead. Thank you for the hydration. Golden equipment. I do like golden stuff. Rude. Shinrai. Draw your blade and strike opponents down in one fierce motion. I don't think I can cross this just yet. I might be mistaken. If they didn't want me to kill everything with chain lightning, they wouldn't have given me the option. Also, I'm beginning to see why people go out of their way to voice their distaste for these things. Oh, Mimic. This looks like a boss fight room. A key of Celeste is required, but I have beaten that game, so... Granted, I never did finish Farewell. At last, I've solved it. My first homunculus subject was a child and recently deceased. The younger the subject and the sooner after death I act, the more quickly the crystal spreads through the body. So far, I've worked only with cadavers, but with a living child, yes, my position in the guild is secure now. The guild has supplied the children that I need, I care not how, and bade me transplant the crystal. My old friend vehemently opposed the move on moral grounds, but I wish only to complete this experiment, replenish the guild's coffers, and continue my historic work. Now, let the experiment begin. Oh, thank goodness, save room. I needed this. And by hey, a boss that doesn't require a key. A bigger dragon. The Abyssal Guardian. And it's dead. Void Ray. I remember that was... Oh hey, Dragon Heart and Dragon's Wrath. I remember Void Ray was the spell that I ended up using in the endgame on my first run through. It's very cool. I think I'll stick with Chain Lightning for now. Through here, what do we find but the Hall of Termination. Fairies named Titania. Or, Flying Swords. Ultimate healing item R. Recipe. Wear Carriage. Sponge Cake. Lots of really nice stuff here. My theories were correct. The crystal is spreading through the children's bodies even faster than I expected. However, my superiors have delivered the grave news that no more children can be provided. This is a setback. With my current materials, it would take more than 10 years to amass the crystal we require. My old friend has taken to spending time with the children. I cannot fathom why. He knows the future that awaits them once they've grown enough crystal, but it is his heart to break. He mentioned a new line of study, the manipulation of kinetic energy. To try and slow the crystal's progress? You cannot be so foolish. More sponge cake, we take those. another copy of the Bloodbringer Shard, we take those. This is probably Throw Axe. Throwing Axe, yes. An Arc Demon. More Sponge Cake. More ammo capacity. I don't really use guns, so all these ammo capacities are kind of... not necessarily getting used. Will there be a warp thing here? No, there will not. Maybe behind it. Kind of looking for either a save room or another warp room at this point. Oh, there's the bell that I was told to look for. Awesome. Or at least I presume that's the bell in question. I think it is. I can quite get up there just yet. But I'm in the right ballpark. I guess I could also take it as like a hint that I'm in vaguely the right area. Maybe that like what I'm after is like above this thing. It's been a minute since I played this game, like I said. I remember the broad strokes. I also would still really like to get another, sword fragment. Since I dropped the one that I had earlier. Buying equipment. I'm in danger. These things happen. We're gonna call it there for the night, I think. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it each and every time. Next scheduled stream is going to be on Sunday. The game is going to be... I've forgotten what game it's going to be. Give me a second. I'm gonna go check real fast. Origami. Next scheduled stream is going to be on Sunday. The game is going to be Origami. Next time that I'm playing Bloodstained in particular is going to be on Monday. I hope you have a wonderful night. I hope to see you again. Good night.